hotel that you have attended. Stand up. Well, how about that? Lauren, you were right. This is a great day for those of us who remember being here fondly, but how interesting to see how many new members of the club and how much turnover we have had in just these 7 years' time. One of the fringe benefits of our club with the reopening of the Yorktowne was gaining 2 new Rotarians as members. James Parker, the head of sales and marketing, and Michael Bloom, the hotel's general manager. Would you please welcome to the podium Michael, who will bring us official greetings from the hotel.
Wow, this is an amazing, amazing day, this sea of folks. It's reminiscent of the 2 days prior to the opening of the hotel, where we were honored and privileged to welcome our new team. We had a team of 75 people. We had a sea of new associates that were so anxious, so excited to be of service and be a part of this hotel. And we had a really fun rally that day, but little did we know what was ahead of us those 2 days prior to the opening. It was really an important welcome to the staff that day. And this is a very, very important welcome today. I just have the privilege and honor today to say to you all, welcome back to the Yorktowne Hotel. I don't want there to be any mistake. This is an amazing privilege to be up here today. We as a team, James and I, early on, we were so enamored with the community and so overwhelmed with people telling us their connection to this hotel. And so we came up with the marketing with Katie and the YCEA team of what is your Yorktowne story? And we have carried that for the better part of a year. And I know in this room, we have just such an incredible amount of stories that literally transcend the history of the hotel. So with that said, recognizing the history, we're constantly telling our teams, we may be holding the keys today, but always remember, please remember, who went before us. Recognize and celebrate all those people intimately with deep, deep appreciation that we're here before we are. Carry the keys in a very proud fashion and honor the hotel in terms of the services and product we provide. How are we today? And then most importantly, how do we carry both those elements of being a Rotarian, the elements of being a part of the Hilton family, the elements of being a part of GF Hotels and Resorts, and then the own individual commitment that we have to faith and as a person to this hotel. You have our commitment going forward, and we're really thrilled to see what the future has to hold for us. And I appreciate a brief moment of your time today to celebrate and welcome you back to the Yorktowne Hotel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. You know, it was worth moving the meeting here today just to get you and James to attend the Rotary meeting today. I'm kidding. I know you have been pretty busy leading up to the reopening, so you both have gotten a pass, which is now expired. The only thing that can cast any kind of a pall over this otherwise wonderful day is the news, and I know that most all of you have already heard it, but the news of the death of our beloved friend and fellow Rotarian, Jim May. Jim was a longtime member of this club, a dedicated servant in this community to many organizations, and was most importantly, a very dear friend. His courage, his dignity, and his fighting spirit throughout his long ordeal was, I know, an inspiration to all of us. The board of directors will be preparing a resolution in Jim's honor, but today, when the community is gathered here in this place, and on the same day that the community will gather this afternoon for his funeral, I would call for a moment of silence in honor and in memory of our beloved friend and fellow Rotarian, Jim May. Thank you. One of the organizations that Jim loved most besides Rotary was the York County History Center just up the street, where I had the privilege of serving on the board with him. On April the 18th, you may have already read, the History Center is hosting acclaimed history writer Eric Larson at the Strand. The History Center's Distinguished Speaker Series happens once every 3 years, and this year, for the first time, the event is offering individual tickets to the general public. Rotarian Joan Mummert and I would like to offer Rotarians a discount code for those tickets should you wish to attend. So please be on the lookout for information on how to access that code in an upcoming announcer. Several other announcements before we continue. Tomorrow, the Fellowship Committee is hosting a networking event at the York SPCA. Please contact past President Rob Bowen to register. The IDEA Committee will meet on Monday, April the 3rd at 8 a.m. via Zoom. The Fundraising Committee will meet on Wednesday, April the 5th at 11 a.m. at the Country Club of York. And the Membership Committee would like to congratulate John Schmidt on his 60th anniversary of membership in the Rotary Club of York. Pretty great that John was here for the first opening of the Yorktowne, and now he's here for the reopening. You knew that was coming, John. I couldn't resist. And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome to the podium past President John Kleindienst, who will introduce our speaker and our program for the day.
Excuse me one moment. This brings back memories. That's fantastic. All right, I have the honor of introducing our speaker, Jack Kay, to you today. Many of you may know Jack pretty well, but there are a lot of new members here that may not be familiar with Jack, so this might be a little bit of an extended introduction. Please bear with me. I've researched a lot of facts about Jack from a lot of sources. I don't have all the time that I needed to talk about everything, but I do have some personal tidbits. Won't have time to talk about drums and sports cars, but that's a whole nother subject. Jack came to York from Philadelphia in late 1975 to serve out the last 2 years of Mayor John Kraut's administration as Director of Community and Economic Development. He went on to serve during Mayor Elizabeth Marshall's administration and was instrumental in the development of some of the projects in York that we take for granted today, like the York City Industrial Park, Cherry Lane, Market Street improvements, Market Way North and South, and the King Street and Philadelphia Street parking garage. His accomplishments were recognized by the Pennsylvania Municipal League, which awarded him the distinction of Outstanding Appointed Public Official. At the invitation of the late Louis Appel, Jack left at the end of Mayor Marshall's term to join Susquehanna-Pfalzgraf, ultimately becoming president of its real estate division. During his 30-year tenure with Susquehanna-Pfalzgraf, he oversaw development and construction of facilities for the company's various operating units, including its radio, cable, manufacturing, and retail divisions throughout the United States, Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. We've talked about his St. Thomas adventure. In 2013, as various entities of the parent company were being sold, he formed an investor group that acquired Susquehanna Real Estate LP. The company maintains an investment portfolio and provides strategic real property consulting services to institutional and commercial clients, corporate clients. I think that's Jack's real job, although sometimes you can't tell. Throughout his career in York, Jack has been very active in the community on boards and chairing boards, including, but not limited to, the Memorial Hospital Board, the York County Economic Alliance, the Appel Center, Better York, and the York County Community Foundation. In 1978, as a founding board member, he chaired the building committee of the Strand Capital Performing Arts Center when it undertook substantial renovations to create the current theaters that we enjoy today. He's been a long-term board member of the Industrial Development Authority, and in his capacity as chairman since 2013, he and the board and staff of the Economic Alliance took on the effort to redevelop the Yorktowne and preserve its architectural character and historic role as a community gateway and a community mainstay and an important economic development driver. That's his program today that we'll hear about. To help explain Jack's stature among York's leadership, we have a meeting of the past chairs of all of the various York County Economic Alliance entities, the Industrial Development Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, the EDC, et cetera. And every year that group honors one of its past chairs with what's called the White Rose Award. This year, the past chairs voted Jack Kay the outstanding past chair for understandable reasons. His program today highlights both the challenges associated with the project along with the high points, such as association with Hilton and York College. The 7-year process exemplifies how the York community came together to rally behind the effort, offer its support, and embrace the project. If you were at the ribbon cutting on January 31st, you saw the spectacular York community response to its reopening. Hilton says it was unprecedented. Jack earned a master's degree in public administration and city planning from Temple University, where he also received a bachelor's degree in political science. And finally, just to set the stage for Jack's, to explain his relentless pursuit of this project, I quote from him from a statement he made to York College some years ago. And this is a quote. "What I love the most about York is the natural landscape of the county, the architectural fabric of the city, and the community values. It is a place where someone's efforts can contribute toward and make meaningful, positive community impact." End quote. I think that explains a lot. Rotarians and guests, please help me welcome York's leading community driver, Jack Kay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, John. I know as an engineer, you strive for accuracy. So you did a pretty good job kind of giving me my intro, but the guy you described is not exactly who I am, and let me explain. So work with me on this. According to some scientists, supposedly, so there's the qualifier, all of the human cells are replenished every 7 years. So the Yorktowne took 7 years. So in the course of the project, I have become reconstituted as a new version of myself. So what does that mean? Well, I am older chronologically, wiser modestly, shorter immeasurably. Oh, and by the way, along the way, I have a new annoying acquaintance named Art. Some of you may know him as well, arthritis, who shows up on occasion. With all of this, I will say I am definitely happier. And let me explain what I mean by that. I imagined this day seeing you here returning to the Yorktowne Hotel there were plenty of times when I wasn't sure that was ever going to be possible because of the challenges, because of issues, all kinds of things that everyone who worked so hard on this project helped to overcome. So actually seeing this come to fruition, meaning we got it across the line, we were able to do what we had set out to do and hopefully produce something that everyone can enjoy and use and be proud of, is something that truly all of us who worked on this really feel great about. So thank you for being here. And let me add to the welcome of having Rotary back to the Yorktowne Hotel. So thank you. This is actually, I believe, the fourth presentation I did before Rotary regarding the hotel project. The first was in January 2016. It was right after we acquired the property. We really didn't know what direction it would take. It was really sort of pointing out the reasons why the Industrial Development Authority felt it was important to attempt to control what would be the outcome of this property. You may recall it was owned by a large international investment group that has hotels in its portfolio. Disinvested, really weren't too interested in maintaining this, put the property on the block for sale. And the IDA initially was sort of on the sideline, looking to offer assistance, perhaps with financing, perhaps in procuring grant funds, so forth and so on. And it became clear that anyone who knew what they were looking at concluded that it was just too heavy a lift. This was not something that they felt they could muster the resources to accomplish. And then we had another wave of interested parties I would describe as bargain hunters, bottom feeders, who really weren't going to do anything but continue the disinvestment. And then we began feeling concerns because others were looking at taking the property down a path that we felt would be actually damaging to the community, to downtown. All of the effort that had gone into making as much progress as we had achieved really could have been compromised. And so thanks to our board and their willingness to step up, we felt we ought to at least control the property, take on a defensive posture, and so we could help steer where this would end up, maybe finding a qualified buyer, going after grants ourselves. And we continued down that path. And over a period of time, I would say our approach went from a defensive posture, making sure the outcome was good, to really beginning to appreciate the economic development opportunity. It became clear when we went out to the community and spoke to room night generators, corporations, groups, organizations. Everyone had a kind of a feeling that the hotel had been let go, was not as well maintained as it was, but everyone also had a great heartfelt feeling about how important the property was. And so we really dug in, and thanks to the Economic Alliance staff and its expertise, were able to qualify for a RACB grant and began a campaign to muster the resources to be able to go forward. We made a couple of very strategic decisions as we started this process. One was that we felt the property, because of its historic nature, was on the National Register, that it might be possible to qualify it for historic tax credits. That was an important piece that could contribute to our capital stack. That comes with opportunity, and it also comes with certain burdens, which I'll cover in a minute. Another major strategic decision that we made along the way was to brand it with a national flag. It had been an independent hotel previously. Again, there are some advantages. You don't have to pay a franchise fee to a national flag, but you lose out in not being able to have the reservation system, point system, training, marketing, so forth. The consultant that we originally hired, which was GF Management, now the management company involved in the hotel, really did a comprehensive analysis and concluded for this property to be successful going forward in a competitive environment, we really needed to be a nationally flagged hotel. And I will tell you, getting that accomplished was a major challenge. We felt we wanted to go out and try to either be a Marriott, a Hyatt, or a Hilton. And so the job before us was to market York, was to market the potential that would be here. But like large retailers on a national level, they look at demographics, they look at certain indexes, and because York is its own municipality, its own governmental entity, they specifically focused on York, the municipality, not York County. And so when you look at those statistics, it's challenging to make the case why a nationally flagged hotel would be successful and why they would want to plant their flag here. We struck out with Marriott. It was a classic scene that I wish I had a film of. It was absolute disaster in terms of how we were received and the conclusion, but it was a tremendous learning opportunity. Next up the bat was Hilton, and we took advantage of the tough lesson we had learned with Marriott and presented to Hilton, convinced them to come here at least on a first Friday. They came in, got blown away by the architecture, people on the street, Central Market, and really with the help of GF Management, were able to get comfortable and agreed that this property merited being a Hilton brand. And the Tapestry group under that major brand heading really fit the bill. It's for unique, historic, individual type properties. So with those two strategic decisions made, we then began to deal with the burdens associated with dealing with historic properties. So we have to comply with national standards, Department of Interior standards for historic restoration. A little tough to see, I know, but here's an example of some of the things we had to address. The center slide shows a demolished floor, and that sort of stripe you see going down the middle is where the old existing corridor was located. Because it's considered a public space, we had to maintain the new corridor in the same style, same finishes as the old one. That was doable, but what that created was a challenge in coming up with hotel rooms of a size with amenities that conform to Hilton brand standards. So in a new hotel build, you really want to try to achieve a cookie cutter type of approach. Each room is the same, there's an efficiency and so forth. I think I'm correct. I think we have 40 different room layouts because we had to work around columns. We had to work around the existing required corridor. That's just one example of the kind of burdens that we faced. So with the input we received through focus groups, public forums, meetings with various corporate users, we knew what the wants and needs would be to be able to redevelop this property. And then the challenge became of, okay, how do you accomplish that? And we really put together a group that helped put the capital stack together. First and foremost was the RASP grant we received, the tax credits we received, foundation philanthropic support, investment by the IDA itself, individual investors, philanthropic gifts, naming rights, and long-term debt. And with long-term debt, we really did not want to over-leverage this project. We had done the financial analysis, looked at the market. We really wanted to try to contain how much long-term debt we would have because we really want to focus on being successful on an operating basis for the long term. As we put all this together, I would say every decision that we made was driven and controlled by sort of 4 overriding issues. One, dealing with the state on the RACB regulations. Some of you may have had some experience with this. the state has certain requirements with regard to sourcing material, prevailing wage, certifications, and so forth. Then we had Hilton brand standards that we had to comply with. Then we had historic Department of Interior standards. Then we had the prospect of having to sell tax credits and the buyer of those tax credits, which ended up being JP Morgan Chase. And surprisingly, none of those were typically on the same page. What Hilton wanted as a brand standard was not in compliance with historic requirements, and that wasn't compliant with the RACB requirement. So I would say for about the last 3 or 4 years, Kim Hogeman and others, and Nancy Barry, the Economic Alliance, and myself were constantly bartering, having discussions back and forth, shuttle diplomacy, and so forth and so on. I mentioned that we sold our tax credits to JP Morgan Chase. The good news is, in the COVID era, where hospitality as an asset class was not viewed very favorably, the ability to go out and sell tax credits to JP Morgan, that was the good news. The bad news was that JP Morgan bought those tax credits because they're the largest bank in the United States, like number 5 in the world. I have never seen put through the ringer the due diligence requirements, documentation that they require. I literally had to prove who I was to the point of, give us your history. How did you get to where you are? Why are you the chairman? What does that mean? And on and on and on. And because of the complex nature of this deal, and by the way, think about this a minute. We're a quasi-governmental entity, the IDA. So if you think about it, how does a governmental entity generate tax credits that someone who has income to shelter can buy? How does that work? And the answer is, it's very complicated. And Ron Hirschner, our solicitor, who sort of led that charge, can attest. It was one of the most complicated deals I have ever dealt with. And with my history with Susquehanna Falsgraf, we did a number of complicated projects, including building a facility in Mexico or in the Caribbean. None of that came close to the complexities associated with this deal. I think I'm correct, there are like 6 or 7 different law firms and lawyers involved in the ping pong match of, who's the smartest lawyer in the room and how are we going to deal with that? So definitely Ron Hirschman, of course. Yes. Yes. When I introduce Ron, I always like to say, he's the guy who kept me out of jail. So I don't want to go into a lot of detail about the restoration process. I'll just point out we were very neighborly and kept that chute that added to the ambiance of this sector of downtown, I think for about 3 years. And I have to give a lot of kudos to Barley Snyder. They put up with toilets and shelving and pipes going 80 feet down a chute and crashing and banging into a large container. As we continued through the construction process, we entered into the COVID era, faced all the challenges associated with that. We wanted to remind the community that this project was ongoing, kind of highlight, do something, a little bit of fun. And we had this mural painted on the side while it was still under renovation. And this was a slide. This is the before of a guest room. This was taken around 2016. And a number of people would say to me when we talked about the Yorktowne Hotel project, oh, I got married there and I had my honeymoon night there. And I asked them, do you remember the mattress you slept on in 1950 or whatever it was? It's probably still there. So we went from the before to the after. I'll just point out that everything you see has to conform to Hilton brand standards. Every light, every carpet, every piece of furniture has to comply. And again, in the era of COVID, sourcing this, supply chain issues, delays, a lot of this is fabricated in China. I became very appreciative of the impact of the Chinese New Year in how plants produce goods, and when you have to order something by, or you're going to sit on the sideline for maybe 3 or 4 months. All of those kinds of things impacted the project, and of course, time delays and costs. So when we started this project, if you would have said, plan on 7 years and a construction budget north of 50 million, I would have run out the door and thought that's just not going to happen. It's not possible. But that is what happened. It did take 7 years. We were able to put together the resources that allowed us to complete the project. And so let me quickly run through what the end product is. I hope you've seen it at night. It is spectacular to come down Duke Street and see the arrival plaza lit, the domes lit, the elevations of the hotel lit up at night. And the next slide, as was referenced with our ribbon cutting, it really tells the story. It tells it all. The regional vice president of Hilton was here for that opening, and her comment was, when I go to a hotel opening, maybe the mayor, council person, a couple of local businesses show up. We have never, ever had this number of people show so enthusiastically. And it really is a tribute to the York community. My feeling is, whether it's a performing arts center, whether it's a stadium, whether it's the hotel, whether it's Kids Place, Yorkers can accomplish what they set out to do. An amazingly generous, committed community. Many of you participate in all of these kinds of things, and I think it really sets York apart from many other communities where that just doesn't happen. An example I point to, our company did a consulting project in Wilkes-Barre that had a similar hotel, the Sterling Hotel. It was empty. They could not muster the resources to redevelop it. That hotel became vacant, boarded up, became a scene for crime and drug use, became the biggest blighting influence in that sector of downtown Wilkes-Barre. And imagining the Yorktowne in that same state, boarded up, dark, perhaps even demolished someday, would have just been tragic. So again, it is a credit to York that you realize what's important and how we preserve important community elements and resources in the community. So let me do a quick infomercial about the hotel. We wanted it to be the place of choice as a full service hotel. We brought in all the technology our corporate users said they needed. We wanted to provide the amenities that the community said they'd like to see. The one that was the most popular was a rooftop facility, and in a minute I'll get into that. One of the things that we wanted to make sure, it's a Hilton brand requirement, is that there is breakfast, lunch, food service here all day. I had dinner here with my wife and daughter a couple of nights ago. You can come and have a meal here, really for any meal of the day. The menu is fantastic. It's interesting. One of the things we were looking for is to offer a menu that doesn't replicate what's already downtown. And Chef Ernst, our chef here, has been given the creative license to do his best and come up with just some really, really terrific offerings. We had a dinner here that was sponsored by Foss & Company, which was sort of the agent that got us the historic tax credits with JP Morgan. And they hosted a dinner for us in the private dining area just off the lobby. It was a 6-course extravaganza. Each course presented and explained and so forth. And the individual from Foss travels all over the world, pretty sophisticated guy, indicated it was as good as anything he experienced in New York, San Francisco, Chicago. And it's an opportunity here for events and planning private dinners. You ought to take advantage of it. It's really outstanding. So we have all-day food service. The Davidson lobby is designed purposely to have flexibility, be able to move furnishings around. Right now, I think we can probably accommodate 40, 45 people for a meal at any time. And another interesting thing that occurred in this process is the Barnhart Tea Room. And that's on a, maybe ahead of myself a little bit, that's the bar off the lobby. We have a tea room up on the mezzanine level, and that is a result of financial underwriting by a really interesting York woman named Deloise Barnhart. Some of you may know or knew her husband, Jack Barnhart, traveled all over the world, came back to the Yorktown as sort of a favorite destination, and wanted to see if we could do a tea room that kind of memorialized she and her husband. And it's up on the mezzanine level. It's a beautiful little space. And in the process of doing that, we learned that in York, there is a national tea expert who actually does presentations with other hotel chains and organizations. So once the tea room is fully operational, I think we'll bring him in and do some lectures and events out of that tea room. So I mentioned there we go. I mentioned the rooftop lounge. That was by far the most asked for amenity as we were doing focus groups. And we all wanted to try to accomplish that. Again, very challenging physically because it meant having to make it accessible, bring an elevator all the way up. The space itself was in very, very bad condition. And again, financially, it was a pretty significant cost to be able to pull that off. And once again, through the generosity of Don Graham, who bought into the idea of why that would be an important amenity for the hotel, and also appreciated the revenue generating potential it has. If you haven't been up there, if you take the tour today, please make it a point to see it. You can imagine having an event down here, having a break up there, after party over a wedding. It's just a beautiful space. And as the weather improves, I think we'll see a tremendous amount of use out of it. The Wellspan Ballroom, which you are in, and thank you, Wellspan, for their contribution to making this possible. This is totally restored. We had to maintain all the historic character. Throughout the hotel, you see a lot of decorative moldings and so forth that were in bad condition. Very expensive to repair all of that. And we came up with a methodology of using 3D printing to be able to replicate these broken pieces at a significant cost savings. And that was sort of a theme throughout this project. Working with the Kinsley organization, our design professionals, we literally had to invent stuff and figure stuff out along the way because it either didn't exist or it was so expensive that we had to kind of come out with another alternative. Another example, some of you may have seen before, the electric shades going down and up and down and up. You can't believe how challenging it was to figure that out. That didn't exist. And how we had to come up with the mechanism to be able to do that, again, just a credit to everyone involved. So we have the facilities that can really accommodate all kinds of meeting sizes. We have over 10,000 square feet of meeting space. Here's the Barnhart Tea Room. Well, I'll keep going. This hotel has really everything that a modern branded Hilton hotel can have. And I hope that the community will embrace it and use it and continue to see it as the community's major gathering space. The hotel is one, as was pointed out, everyone seems to have a Yorktowne Hotel story, myself included. I'll just quickly wrap up and take some questions by saying, when I came to York to be interviewed for my position in John Kraut's administration, I don't know why, but for some reason, the interview was held in the boom boom room of the Yorktowne Hotel. And there's photos of this, so I'm not, making this up. There was a boom boom room. It was the hotel's attempt at that point to kind of have a cabaret. And the time for my appointment was when some staff were still there. So I'm coming from Philadelphia and I find the hotel. I'm a little skeptical about the boom boom room. And as I walk in, a woman dressed in a sequin tutu greets me and points out to the back room for where my interview was going to take place. So I wasn't sure whether my leg was being pulled or what was really taking place. But listen, it worked out. Here I am. So let me just, stress a couple of things. This would not have happened without the leadership and staff of the Economic Alliance, or would have happened without, I'm going to say, the guts of the Industrial Development Authority. I still remember our early discussions where I said, we got this hotel issue. There potentially is going to have, some bad outcomes. We need to do something about it. And the IDA board, I think, recognized that's what they're in business for, to take on challenging projects that can make a meaningful difference in the community. So kudos to the IDA board. Some of you are here today. Kudos to the Economic Alliance. And for our supporters, philanthropists, foundations, investors, lenders, all of you, you made this happen. Thank you, York.
Jack, I wanted you to stay up here and you scooted away, so I need to ask you to come back. I know you all have questions, but Jack did a marvelous presentation and pretty comprehensive. And we have just one more thing before you are done. If I could ask Michael Haiti to please come forward and help handle that one more thing.
Well, as Glenn spoke about at the beginning of the meeting, we are a club of service above self. And it's my honor to chair the Service Above Self Committee. And I can't think of anyone more deserving today than Jack Kay to receive this award on our behalf. So Jack, thank you.
Jack, I don't know that I can or need to add very much to what Michael's just said. I will just say that as we all stand here today in the middle of this restored jewel in our city, I can think of no one more deserving again for this award, as Michael has said. Many people's hearts and heads and hard work went into this effort, which you graciously credited in your remarks. But your vision and your dedication and your determination were absolutely key to its success. And by the way, I also want you to know that the Service Above Self Award from the Rotary Club of York includes, in addition to that lovely award, a 30-day free trial membership in the Rotary Club of York. It never did before, but I just created that by executive fiat. Just saying, Jack. Okay. In honor of Jack's time with us today, he has signed the book plate in the book Different is Beautiful Too by Melanie Haiti, the spouse of Michael Haiti. This will be donated to Lincoln Charter School along with a bookmark created by students at Creative York. Next week, we will hear from Rich Farr, the Executive Director of Rabbit Transit. Rich will explore the past, present, and future of mobility in the Susquehanna Valley and what that means for the business community. hear about the newest mobility trend, microtransit, and Rabbit Transit's 501c3 charitable arm, Rabbit Cares, one of the first of its kind in the nation. Serving on the National Transit Institute's advisory board, Rich will discuss the challenges facing the transit industry, the triumphs of several innovation projects, and the impacts of regionalization. I am particularly sad to be missing next week's program because, among other things, I serve as the chair of the board of Rabbit Cares. But as some of you may know, I am heading to Australia literally right after this meeting ends, and I will be gone for the next 2 Wednesdays. My thanks, as always, to my successor, Aaron Jacobs, who will be filling in my absence back at the Country Club of York. Our closing quote today: sometimes you will think you can't take it another day, but if you hang in there one step at a time, you will be able to accomplish more than you ever imagined. I can't imagine a more appropriate quote for the theme of the day. Friends, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.